I'll find valid in your eyes. You'll always be my night sky.
Hello friends, and welcome to my May wrap-up. And my name is Sarah, and I do weekly videos about reading and writing. So let's just get started. I read 6 books this month. So I got 2 5 stars, 2 4 stars, and 2 3 stars. So it wasn't a bad month at all. It's like all over the place. So I'm just telling you them in the order that they showed up in on my Goodreads. Like, you know. So the first book was If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha, and this is one of the 3-star books. So in this book, you're following a group of women who, some are friends, some are acquaintances, some don't like each other for various petty women reasons. And it's a lot of it just like discusses beauty expectations and beauty standards and relationships, a woman's place sometimes, and they even like talk about K-pop fanatics. This is like today shoved into a novel. I really enjoyed reading a lot of it until the very end. The ending was so abrupt. I didn't feel like I got any closure for these characters that I grew to love, and I grew to know them and their histories, and it kind of annoyed me, so I gave this book 3 stars. But it is a beautiful story if you don't mind wondering about them for the rest of your life. The next book was Cersei by Madeline Miller, which I gave 5 stars. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. And in this one, of course, you're following Cersei. She is the daughter of Helios, a god, the sun god of all gods. And in her life, she's never really treated with respect. Her family is kind of cruel to her. It's really disturbing. And then it comes out that she's a witch, and her father goes to Zeus and is like, no, I don't think we should kill them. It's fine, because it's Cersei and her brother are witches. And so, except for, you know, he went to Zeus and he's like, they don't need to be killed, or nothing really needs to be done to my son because he hasn't used it. But Cersei had used her powers on a girl because she was jealous. And, well, so they decided to exile her. So they send her to an island to live out the rest of her days, which is forever when you're immortal, right? But on the island, she actually loves it. She decides she's happy there alone because she's been treated like shit like her whole life. So she begins to come into herself. She perfects her witchcraft. She like makes friends with the animals on her little island. She makes a home. It's just really beautiful to see, like the self-acceptance that she has for herself after feeling so inferior her whole life. So then she does end up making relationships along the way, because people will come to the island seeking refuge from the sea or the ocean, or, you know, storms and stuff. So she finds friends, finds companionship as a child, and it's just beautiful. But the one thing that I loved so much about it was her strength, when she had no strength before. Well, she thought she did. She thought she was nothing, and then she came into her own and was like, I'm a badass witch, like, don't play me. That's why I loved it so much. All right, so the next book, in case you didn't know, you will know soon, I had a running theme of reading mythology this month, which I had higher hopes for, but Cersei was by and far the best one. And so the next one is the Song of Achilles by also Madeline Miller, which I had higher hopes for. I only gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. All right, so this book I saw everyone love and crying over, and I was hoping for the same. I didn't have the same. But this book follows Patroclus and his life, but his life involves Achilles, and he falls in love, and then they fall in love like together. They are both together, and it's a beautiful thing. It is a beautiful relationship. And early on in the story, we know the ending of Achilles. Like, it's not a surprise. We know it's coming. It still doesn't hurt any less to see it come and to read about it, and of course to be sad. It didn't hit me as hard as it hit other people. I did feel all the emotions that you're supposed to, of course, like sadness and grief. I was like, oh, that is really sad. Deeply as other people. Maybe I'm just a monster, I don't know, but I gave it 3 stars. The next mythological book I read is The Witch's Heart, and I gave that one 4 stars. 90% of the book was a 3-star read for me. The only thing that made it bump up to 4 stars was the aspect of like motherly love, like the mother sacrifice, like you would do anything for your child. It really hits me because I am a mom, and because of that it got 4 stars. However, the rest of it was like, okay, it's basically Cersei remix. Like, it's about a witch who is running because the gods are after her, and so she finds this little island with a cave in it and decides to make it her home. And then up shows Loki, Thor's, no, the brother to Odin, yes, and, or Odin's son. Well, in the book I'm pretty sure he's Odin's brother, and he is the same Loki we all know. I had higher hopes for him. I had hoped maybe in this book we'd see another side of him, but we didn't. He's still kind of just like I'm trying to use a family-friendly word, but he's still Loki. We'll just say it like that. But yeah, in the end, her motherly sacrifice is what made this book special for me. The rest of it was just kind of like, okay, it wasn't a bad book, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But so the next book that I read was Cold Storage by David Cope. I don't know how to say it, but it's a 5-star. So in the beginning of this book, they have a bioterrorist who is coming to check out what's going on in Australia. There's like reports of something happening, right? And he gets there, and there is this organism that has like killed all the people in this town. It's only like 20 people. It's a small little like native town. So it's killed all the people there, right? So they contain it and freeze it. Once it's frozen, it's like dormant. It can't do anything. And they bring it back to the States. I don't freaking know why, because they need to like science or something. And then they just end up putting it in a cold storage, right? And underneath an old military installation. And it must be kept frozen or at below a certain temperature, and it's underneath these cold, underground cold streams. And so it, like science says, it's good, we're fine. So it gets forgotten about, right? The people who wrote reports on it died. This was in the 80s or 90s. They didn't really have computerized stuff yet. It was all like actual reports that didn't get transported into computers, blah, blah. So it kind of gets forgotten about. And then in the next section there, we're following 2 security guards who work for the storage unit, who was built on top of the old military installation, right? So they're still in the basement and stuff, but they don't know it, and they hear these beeps and they're like, what's going on? They bust down a wall, right? They thought it was a good idea, I guess. They're bored, and they see this panel of lights and it's flashing red. So basically what has happened is global warming. Global warming has warmed up the springs, and now it is at a dangerous temperature for this organism that came from outer space. It came from outer space on a rocket, landed, like a part of it landed in the sea, the other part landed in the Australian area. So eventually the right guy gets called. Robert, the one who's a bioterrorist, gets called, and he races to Kansas. This book takes place in Kansas, by the way. In not Abilene, but it takes place in Kansas, actually in a city north of where I'm from, and so that was really fun to hear about. But he races there. The 2 security guards have to help him because he gets injured. And anyways, so they're all like scrambling to save the day before the exposure gets more widespread, because it does get out. And it was a really good book. 5 stars. Obviously, I enjoyed it a lot. I loved that I knew where it was from. The Kansas setting like made it special for me. But the story itself is honestly really good. I really enjoyed it, and it is also the same job that Andrew has. He works for emergency management, which covers the CBRN, which is the chemical, biological, radiological, what's the end, nuclear. So he covers all that stuff in his work. Like, that's what he does. So if something like this were to happen, he would be sent in. So let's all pray to God that doesn't. But it was fun to read about it. All right, the last book I read was On Earth We Are We're Briefly Gorgeous. This one was written by Ocean Vuong and it got a 4 out of 5 stars. So this one is written as a letter to his mother, and he was called Little Dog by his family. It's like just an Asian tradition to name their children, stuff like that. But and literally it just follows a story from Vietnam, like his mother coming to Vietnam with him and during the Vietnam War, and like life in America. And then it follows his story, like falling in love and falling out of love and loss and coming out to his mother as gay. It was really kind of a hard story to read, but I also felt really happy because he seemed pretty content and happy in his life. But it is a really beautiful story, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So that is all the books that I read in May. Let me know what you read in the month of May and what your favorite read was. I would love to hear that. But otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.
When your stars have burnt out and your heart makes no sound, I'll find validity.